full of too many football podcasts comes another football podcast. One man's quest to find the answers.
Okay, boys, let's go to work.
Now, live from Pine Grove Studio B, it's Let Me Be Frank with T. Frank.
Like you, I haven't seen a whole lot of Penn State football so far this spring, but that is what we're talking about today on Let Me Be Frank. I'm T. Frank, Penn State football wrapping up spring practice, so we're going to attack that from a couple different ways today. Luckily, before we get to that, it is much easier to find the subscribe button. Like, it's so much easier to find the subscribe button because it's right there. Like, it's always right there. As far as footage of Penn State, anyone who's seen something, like, you can go to the dark web, but, you know, you're not going to find much. Okay, let's hit it. No, the subscribe button. I'll hit the video once you hit that.
This is Let Me Be Frank.
Penn State football heading into their final spring scrimmage on Saturday, previously known as the Blue-White game. Here are 5 players that need to have a good spring for Penn State football. Coming in at number 5, everyone's favorite Canadian safety, Jonathan Sutherland. Sutherland has been a standout on special teams and a rotational player on defense for Brent Pry on the back 7 since his freshman season, where he even got a couple of starts due to injury. That being said, Sutherland has not been able to lock down a long-term starting role at safety despite multiple attempts over the years. This may be his last best chance, and he's currently locked in a battle with JUCO transfer safety Jair Brown. The reason he's not higher on this list? Because Sutherland is likely to have a big role on special teams still, was a captain in 2020, and is likely to have a similar role on defense even if he doesn't start, as Penn State likes to rotate at least 4 players at safety on defense. Coming in at number 4, State College's own Keaton Ellis. Ellis was a standout in 2019 as a part of the quarterback rotation, where he held his own against Big Ten opponents, Michigan State and Rutgers, but struggled against Minnesota, Ohio State, and Indiana. Overall, he had a good freshman campaign, but struggled in 2020, thanks mostly due to injuries. He didn't get a chance to play until Week 11 versus Nebraska, though he did close the season strong versus Illinois. Heading into 2021, it's likely that Ellis will have a bounce-back season, but he also doesn't have a choice. The Nittany Lions have brought in depth and competition at the cornerback position with sophomore transfer Johnny Dixon, along with freshman Kalen King, who's coming in as a part of the class of 2021. That's not to mention the fact that the cornerback rotation is already stocked with Joey Porter Jr., Treat Castro-Fields returning for his final season, and Marquise Wilson all vying for snaps. On to number 3 on our list of Penn State football players that need to have a strong spring, wide receiver Cam Sullivan-Brown. Sullivan-Brown has been poised for a breakout season since before TikTok was popular. Sullivan-Brown is being talked up once again as a guy who might flash for Penn State this year.
CSB is a guy that, I think there's a lot of excitement about, a guy that going into last year was the starter. And then you have obviously Parker and Keandre, who ended up playing a lot of football for us last year. And
injuries have been a problem for Cam Sullivan-Brown, who hasn't played a full season for Penn State at this point in his career. In fact, the last time he topped 100 snaps in any season was his freshman campaign, according to PFF. He'll be once again pushed on the depth chart by players younger than him, most notably sophomore receiver Keandre Lambert-Smith, who flashed in his absence in 2020. The saving grace for Cam Sullivan-Brown? The fact that Lambert-Smith also struggled in 2020 and didn't secure the job for himself heading into this spring. He'll also be pushed by freshman receivers who have yet to arrive on campus. Harrison Wallace, Lonnie White Jr., and Liam Clifford are all expected to enter the competition, but won't be here until the summer at the earliest. We'll take a quick detour at number 2, because this player doesn't necessarily need to have a strong spring, but Penn State would really like it if he did. We're talking about backup quarterback Taequan Roberson. Roberson is a virtual unknown to the Penn State fan base because he's yet to actually throw a pass during the regular season. Roberson inherits the backup duties from Will Levis, who transferred to Kentucky, presumably to start in 2021. If Roberson is unable to secure that job, he'll be replaced by true freshman quarterback Christian Veilleux, who I like to potentially apologize to because his name was not in the Spring Media Guide pronunciation guide, and I don't know if that's how you say his name. Either way, Penn State would likely be uncomfortable with a true freshman backing up incumbent starter Sean Clifford. Finally, we've reached the top. The number one player on our list that needs to have a strong spring. By the way, before we get there, congratulations to you for reaching this point. This is really an accomplishment by you. The number one player on our list that needs to have a strong spring, that'd be running back Devin Ford. Ford flashed big play in waiting potential in 2019, and 2020 was to be his year where he would be a breakout big play candidate. Unfortunately, that's not how it played out for Ford. From his infamous Week 1 touchdown versus Indiana, to ceding time and carries to true freshman Kevon Lee, to being injured and finishing 2020 with a sputter. For his part, Ford says he's refocused himself this offseason to focusing on the details.
Just going in meetings and taking more notes more carefully, coming to the facility when you need to, times off, getting the extra work, just little things, eating better.
If you break out the Penn State running back room by positional skill set, you'll see that it's not exactly one big competition, but several players vying for a role on the offense. While Penn State will rotate through at least 3 running backs in one game, you can see Noah Cain and Kevon Lee sharing time as the team's lead or power back, while John Lovett, Keziah Holmes, and Ford are the secondary or explosive running back and the home run threat. In that aspect, Keziah Holmes flashed last year as a potential big play threat in the backfield, though he did not have enough snaps to make a true impact on the season. However, he was named the fastest freshman in America coming out in the 2020 class. Whether it's the newcomer Lovett, the rising star in Holmes, or the incumbent in Ford, someone will be losing carries at some point. There you have it. Those are the 5 players that need to have a strong spring for Penn State football. I'm T. Frank. This is Let Me Be Frank.
This is Let Me Be Frank.
All right, so Penn State football heading into their spring scrimmage, which should be typically called the blue-white game. This would be a time where everyone's getting a massive sunburn, and we're outside for the first time this spring, but none of that's going to happen this year. No tailgating, nothing like that. So to get a little bit of that flavor, I figured I'd start a segment that I wanted to do since I started this show, a segment where we just BS together, my friend Brian and I. This is the segment called Beers with Brian. Brian, thanks for coming on and making me relatable.
Thanks, Steve Frank.
So what are you drinking? First off, let's start there.
This is double IPA, and because it was an interesting can that I got on a can exchange with my future brother-in-law, I don't know the name of it, but it's delicious.
Very good. That's good. It looks really hazy. It looks
It is. It's a hazy double. It's pretty nice.
Ooh, that's nice.
It has like Einstein on the front of the can. Couldn't tell you what it is though.
Isn't that the best though? I love that's like that's an adult Christmas stocking, right?
Yes, essentially. Like, and you're just going in like, if I don't go and I don't like check it in on Untapped, I have no idea what I drank. Like people are like, "Have you had this?" And I'll be like, "Oh, hold on." Wait, yes, in June 2019, I tried this. I gave it 4.25.
It depends when you drank it, how many stars you'd give it. That would happen to me. I'm like, this is awesome. And it was
I'm
like
so
the
nice
4th
about
beer.
it.
Yeah.
Right? I'm so nice about it though. Like a lot of people are like, this is crap. And I'm like, man, I had 4 years where I drank nothing that was even remotely tasty. Like if you get something that I can just slug down and it tastes good, you get a 4. You're all on it.
So what's a 5? Well, it's 5 stars, right? I don't have Untapped, so what's a 5?
It's 5 stars. It just got to blow your mind. Like for me, it's just got to be like, oh, okay. Like there's different types. Like you got like your stouts and your sours and the IPAs, and you know when you have one what a 5 is. Like it's hard to describe. You know what it is when you have it.
Yeah. Yeah, I like my beers sort of like I am. I like mine very stumpy and really heavy. So I usually need a stout, something that is like you got to chew it to get it down. Those are typically the beers I like. So we're sadly exiting stout season. We're now into that.
I have 3 of them in my fridge that I was looking at, and I was like, I don't know if I can do 11% right now.
There's too much sun outside. There's too much hope. I can't do 11%. Right?
What's a coffee porter gonna do for me right now? Like it's like I'm like a yard is green. I gotta cut it. What are we doing?
By the way, I am drinking an advertising opportunity. So a delicious advertising opportunity. This is a wonderful beer, and the great thing is, you can put whatever name you want on it. Whoever. Just say.
There's no shame there. Absolutely none. No shame.
Well, I mean, if we do this segment more than once, these are going to get more ridiculous. So the only thing that's going to stay the same is the beers with Brian part.
Right, like your ad here.
Did you look at my sketchbook?
I must have.
My favorite, and I don't know, I won't spoil it yet, but I have one. Once we reach a peak, I am definitely putting it on a beer cozy and putting on a website for somebody to buy, because I believe it's going to be a hot seller.
Well, I mean, it might be, but nobody knows yet. So
we'll find out.
Even if one person buys it, though, you're on it.
Yeah, absolutely.
You're an Etsy. You're like official on Etsy. If just like one person hits the click button, like they could be like 8 deep one night, and they just be like, "That's funny." Done.
I've sold something on Etsy before, believe it or not.
Look at you.
Yeah, I know. I'm an
you
entrepreneur.
Write that one down on the old resume. Is that on your LinkedIn? Do you have that on your LinkedIn? Sold something on Etsy one time.
Making bracelets and stuff like that.
Like, he is depth.
Yes, I've got all kinds of corporate sales ability, because I sold a photograph to a lady on Etsy one time, and then I promptly closed my shop because it was open for 8 months, and that was the only one that sold.
And somebody's just like, "Wow, this flower is fantastic. I need this in my den."
Yep. So I got a question for you. Snap your fingers, and you are a freshman at Penn State this year. First off, good for you. Also, sorry. But would you be excited to go to the spring scrimmage this year?
My guess is yes. And I say that with slight hesitation, because it's not like, what am I watching? Like,
right.
It's practice. Like, I didn't get the full experience. I didn't get to do the wave and all that other stuff. And you don't know, like, me being naive freshman doesn't know how cool a game is if I've never been to one before.
Right.
Like before I went, I had gone to a Penn State game, and I was like, so I knew what to expect when I was a freshman. Like, these guys just going in, they're gonna be like, this is like kind of lame. Like, What is this? Yeah,
especially without all the other preamble that we're doing right now. Without that sort of carnival atmosphere, what you're doing is you're doing my job. You're going to watch a practice. And I don't know how many freshmen are like super excited about that. I mean, I would have been, huge football nerd, but you're right. Like, there is the, like, would it be fun?
Like, this would be cool for, like, yeah, right. You, like, whenever I was there, like, it would have been, I would have had a blast. I'm like, this is great. Can you believe they were in the outside zone and the inside zone? You'd be like, and like my friend next to me would be like, they ran the ball.
Right.
Like, who cares? Right?
Who cares? You don't understand. It's like, I don't care. They didn't throw a touchdown.
The one thing I would be interested in is just like all of the girls that are in front of me just yelling, tackle him, because that is what their dad yelled at the TV whenever they were watching football growing up. Like, how many times, like, we're on offense. Why are you screaming, tackle him? Like, once a game, I swear.
Yeah. And there's going to be like, how many, like maybe 1,000 people in 100,000 seat stadium. So like the whole thing is going to be bizarre, and I'm a little bit fascinated by it, but I also, in a certain sense, don't care. You know, like it's the final practice that they're gonna. It's not the blue-white game like it traditionally is. So
even the blue-white game traditionally is. I mean, it's the glorified practice, but the fun happens from like 8 to whenever kick is.
Yeah,
like
and sometimes till like 2 hours after.
Right. How many times do you talk to somebody like, I didn't even go in, couldn't even make it, and you're like,
Yeah.
or I went in and like Chippy Ellie had scored 3 touchdowns. Like, what are we even what are we talking about here? I think you probably remember that one. That was an interesting game. Walk on running back. Do you remember him?
No,
Chippy Ellie.
Yes,
he may have gotten
now
like
you said it. You said it enough times now that I remember it. Yeah, just another one of those try hards on the walk on. The one I remember the most was the Bill O'Brien one that he's just like, screw it at halftime, we're done because it was raining so hard. Like he's just we're done.
Yeah.
This is pointless. That's the one I remember the most because I was like, oh, okay, so that's what we're doing. My day just ended.
There was one that I didn't go to because it was raining so hard. I like looked out the window. I go, yep, I'm good. Not going to that one.
Yeah. So do you have any just like high level football thoughts or thoughts in general about spring football this year? Like what are you paying attention to?
Well, like, I guess it's these guys who come in early, like the freshmen that the early entrants. Like I try to I'm sifting through the roster looking for their names, and then like I will look for articles that have their names in them because they only get mentioned if they stand out.
Yeah.
Like the King kids, like the twins.
Mm-hmm.
If one of them is doing good, then I'll look out for that. I don't expect anything from the young QB, but like it's cool to see them because it might be the only time we watch them throw a pass at Penn State. No doubt. Like the Canadian kid who I don't know how to say his last name, and I'm not going to mess it up here.
Vayu.
James, yeah, right.
James said it this week, so I got a little bit of confirmation, a little too late because he's also in the episode earlier. But I did. Luckily, I said it right both times. So yeah, Vayu is how we say it.
Vayu. Okay, yeah. Cool. Because like usually I wait for the spring game for the broadcaster to get it right, and I'm just like, oh yeah, Vayu. I knew it the whole time. I knew it. Yep.
Yeah. And if you didn't watch the spring game a couple years ago, you would have never seen Taequan Roberson throw a football at this point. So
yeah, he could be left-handed. I have no idea.
I also give them props that they didn't call him 6 feet tall because you know how that works, right? Where you always have the you got the quarterback that isn't 6 feet tall, but he's definitely 6 feet. Like they call him 5'11" in the media guide. So he's definitely not 6 feet tall. And I give him props for being honest on that one, which means he's probably 5'10".
Well, nobody's 5'10", right?
Yeah.
Isn't that how the saying goes? Nobody's 5'10". It just sounds nice. You're either 5'9" or 5'11". There's no 5'10" people in the whole world. Well, at least men, right?
No, absolutely.
It sounds close enough to be 6 foot because you can just be like, 5'10". I'm almost 6 foot. But like 5'9" sounds short in your head, so you always say 5'10".
Yeah. And there is no mistaking someone who's 5'9" for somebody who's 6 feet tall. So it's an obvious lie, but we all do it, especially in sports. Like, oh my gosh. Did you see Rashad Bateman? How he shrunk at his pro day? I can't
remember. Oh, yeah. I saw that he was like 6'2" as a senior, and he was like 5'11" ¾ as his pro day or something like that.
He was just tickling over 6 feet tall, but he lost about 2 inches. Now he did lose weight from COVID, so that's a thing. But like COVID doesn't make you shorter, so that just goes to show you that
he's not
everybody's lying,
man, right? You don't lose height until you're way late in age. Yeah.
So about Kalen King, one of the King brothers you mentioned, James Franklin did say this week that he is the most advanced freshman they've ever had on campus during their time at Penn State. So, wow.
Do you believe that?
He went out of his way to say it. So I do believe that. He also talked about he stopped the press conference from going to the next question after a question about the O-line because he wanted to talk about Bryce Effner. And usually he doesn't single out players unless he wants to. So yeah, I do. And I broke down his high school tape, and he had some advanced level stuff as far as ball recognition So I'm not terribly surprised, but to be on a college level, that is impressive. I just don't know how they're going to play all these kids. Like, they're stacked at corner.
Yeah, maybe they can make one of them a linebacker because they have no depth there. You know,
Yeah.
I wish you would have said that about his brother Kobe. It'd be like, okay, cool. Like, we got this good linebacker. That's refreshing. It's like, well, we got 4 people playing linebacker this year. And like the defensive line depth, like, they're gonna call somebody in East Halls at some point. If there's one injury, they're done.
Yeah. There's a ton of young kids that nobody knows. And the spring game would have been a great time for everyone to get to know them, but here we are having virtual beers still. The linebacker part is funny too, because of the 4 that they have, fans don't want one of them even seeing the field. So really, you've got your starters, and then after that, you're just praying that they never come off the field at linebacker.
No, you're right. No,
yeah,
definitely, 100%. Yeah, it's the same thing with like offensive linemen, Clifford, anybody who could get any type of like action at running back. Like, they should all just be standing there, like, getting phone numbers and like waving to the other fans there. Like, I mean, seriously, if you see no, I know Noah Kane hasn't practiced really like in full participation, but if you see like that transfer or any of the whose name escapes me, or Lee or Holmes, like, tote the ball on Saturday, you'd be like, don't tackle him, please. Whatever you do, just don't do it.
Yeah. I'm really excited about watching Keziah Holmes. I think he's going to be super productive. Like, there were a couple of plays on tape last year where he just did stuff that I haven't seen in a while from a Penn State running back, as far as like just making people look foolish. And obviously he needs to be more consistent in doing that, but he's the guy that's got the most home run skills while also like being able to break tackles. So I'm super interested to see if they do incorporate more of the outside zone. They do run a little more of the perimeter running, because I think he's tailor-made to hit home runs if the offensive line takes that next step this year, which I said this week, Cam Sullivan-Brown has been ready to have a breakout season since before TikTok was popular. And I feel like that's what the offensive line has been doing. Like, ever since Twitter started, the offensive line has been ready to have a breakout season. So like, at some point that has to happen. And who the hell knows? Maybe 2021, it all comes together at the same time. But I'm excited about that kid. I think he's got some pretty serious potential.
And the offensive line, like, that was pretty putrid last year. I mean, just from like just 1,000-foot view, or from the couch view watching on TV, like, wow, they're not getting any push.
Yeah.
And now they're playing tic-tac-toe with them and just, seeing what fits where. And I guess it could help. And I'm always optimistic, but part of me is just like, can I just be good at one thing?
You're right. Well,
can I just be good at tackle?
Yeah. It's an interesting situation too, because I think who a couple of the guys are going to be. Like, Mike Miranda obviously had the inside track to be one of the starters at one of the positions. Juice Scruggs, the way he was playing at the end of the season, like, nothing's stopping him. And then you got Rasheed Walker. So, here's with Brian. What else after that? Like, who's, is Caden Wallace the other tackle? Like, is he locked in there? And then who's at center? What's the combination going to be like? Because I do think they have talented players, but where are they going to play, and do they work together? That's going to be interesting. And then, a full season with Phil Troutwine coaching them. Like, we got done this week talking to him, and he's one of those guys, when he talks, I'm just like, yep. I'm buying into what he's saying, because like everything he says checks the boxes of like, that's how you're successful at football. And he's had success at every stop that he's been at. So hopefully for Penn State fans, like, that actually hits for once, because that, to me, that's the biggest difference. Is they've gotten athletes. Like, they've gotten athletes along the offensive line, but they just need that extra thing to bring it all out of them. And we'll see if Troutwine is the guy to do that, because, I mean, at a certain point, you'd think all that high-level recruiting was going to show up on the field.
Right. Wasn't Menet a 5-star or like a really high, like number one center in his class or something like that?
Yeah.
And I don't necessarily think that it was his fault that his stock wasn't higher. I think a lot had to do with what was going around him. But
yeah,
for whatever reason, it's like it's really hard to tell a good offensive lineman when the other four are playing poorly around them.
Right.
If that makes sense. So like, I don't know, I guess the last couple of years, there's always been like that one spot or two spots that have been kind of like, and it makes the whole line look bad. Like we talked about Holmes a couple minutes ago, and I was excited to watch him play because I saw the same video everybody else did. He's wearing 26. He did like the front flip over somebody and kick flip and, 720 McTwist, and broke a tackle. And then like his first carry, he got like arm tackled at his shin. And I was like,
yeah.
But I mean, once again, it's like you've talked about it in your previous pods. Like, could be the scheme. It could be he wasn't getting a lot up front. Could be it was his first game and he's used to playing against 160-pound defensive ends.
Yeah, I think that's a big part of it too. Yeah. So the other thing I thought was interesting, there was this conversation, this idea, going back to the corner position, somebody's got to move, right? So the idea was somebody was going to move from corner to safety because there was obviously an opening there and competition. And everyone kept coming back to Keaton Ellis. And I'm like, Keaton Ellis isn't 200 pounds. Like, how the hell is he going to play safety? And like, I never got that. Like, what am I missing there, Brian? What am I missing about Keaton Ellis playing safety?
I mean, I'm not sure because I wouldn't know what would make a good safety in that scheme. Because like we watched Lamont Wade and he clearly wasn't like, I mean, he was big for like a little guy. He was like stacked, but like I wouldn't necessarily call him like a big safety. He did play down in the box.
He played
like,
big. But
he played bigger than what he was. I mean, you almost want to look at somebody who has the best ball skills and is the most athletic, because you could probably put Brisker down lower because ball skills are okay. And I assume that he can catch better than what he did last year because he could have had like 3 or 4 picks and he had 1 and a fumble.
Yeah. But I do think that he got better as the season went on. He got to the catch point a lot more. And he was starting to show kind of, I think he was starting to show more of a complete game where he could trigger down into the run game. And also if he had to play single high safety, he could get to the sideline. It was Rutgers, but like he made some pretty impressive plays on the ball where he got to the sideline and it disrupted the pass. I'm interested to see how he does because that's another place. It's not like they're not talented in the secondary. They've had some talented players. And this is going to be something I'm going to get into in a future episode about like what their coverage scheme is, what they do. And I think there's one thing that they're missing and that that's eluded them when it comes to things they need to make their scheme work, because it's a lot of zone and it's a lot of pre-snap, stuff to confuse the quarterback. That takes a certain type of player. And that's part of it too, of like, you're going to move Keaton Ellis there. Like he's a corner. He's played the corner on the boundary his whole life. And you need a guy who's got instinct positions and all that stuff. And I don't get it. I don't get that idea other than he tackles really well for a corner in the flat, which is like the bare minimum you want in a safety. That's like I guess it opens the door, but when it comes to everything else in the position, there's so much more that goes into playing the safety position than just can you tackle.
I mean, fair enough. But these kids are so. The thing is like I think it's easier to move a corner to safety now than it would be in, corner to safety as a pro. Like some of the younger guys, like you may want to just be like, hey, maybe we just move you back. Like try playing away from the ball. We'll put some weight on you. We know that our weight staff can do that. We'll still keep you super fast.
Yeah.
That's what I think. And it's weird that this year they have so much talent and you feel much more secure about them on the back end. When last year they had a lot of questions on the back end, and they were great up front. It just flipped on you with graduation.
Yeah.
And players leaving. I mean, last year, like 2020 was weird. So like if there was a year to be bad and nobody's going to care about it, last year was the year.
Yeah, for sure. That actually brings up something I want to talk about, because you are a lifelong Steelers fan, and the Steelers are picking in an interesting spot in the draft. Which player would you most like to see the Steelers draft if it were one of the Penn State players? And you can even go off the wall if you want to go like one of the guys in the later rounds or anything like that. But who would you be most excited by if they were drafted by the Steelers?
It would be Owe.
Yeah.
And the reason I say that, and I would take Parsons ahead of him, just like I'm trying to think of like who would they actually have a shot at. Like if Parsons fell there, I think they'd take him regardless. I just think that they would.
Where would he play for Pittsburgh?
I think they would figure it out.
Yeah.
I don't think that it would be necessary. Like you could play him when they do their base 3-4, which they don't do that often, but he would be the second linebacker. He could play downhill against the run, and you could let Bush play in pass coverage. And then you could actually rush him on as an edge guy on third down. So he would be an interesting player for them to have, because they can do so much. They've had talented players like that with that coaching staff before, and they've done a lot with them. The reason I like Owe is because Bud Dupree just left, and their games match each other.
Yeah.
It's
you think
really, really not a lot of production in college, super athletic. They set the edge really well, and so fast they can chase down that outside run from behind. And that is something that both of them could do. And when Bud Dupree got hurt, that's when the slide happened for the Steelers. A lot of things happened, but that was one of the things that happened. Right. And you lost that play. The guy who beat the offensive tackle off the outside and either brought the running back into Cam Hayward or pushed him outside to TJ Watt.
What do you think of Alex Highsmith? Because I liked him. I liked him as a project last year when I watched this film. I thought he had a lot of potential if he could put on some weight, and I saw some good things from him. So, like, obviously Jason Owe is a special athlete, so I'm not going to be like, oh, you know what, we're good. We've got Ali Highsmith. But, like, what'd you think of him? Does he make that feel a little better, or are you still looking to upgrade that position?
It's not an upgrade. It's like, don't you kind of need three there, though? Because you're not.
So Tuitt and Hayward changed my opinion. I would agree with you, but Tuitt and Hayward are so good on the interior that it really creates one-on-ones across the board with your starting four linemen.
I guess my issue is that somebody's always going to go down on the edge. Yeah. You got to give breathers. So if you can constantly get rush in when TJ's over on the sideline, which in the playoff game they had. I forget what his first name is, but Marsh was out there running around, and nothing against the guy, but he's not an elite edge guy. He was never going to get a sack in a playoff game. So you kind of just need a little bit of depth there. So that's why I said it, like 24, if he was there and they took him, like most people would be mad. A lot of radio shows would be mad, but I would understand it. Like from a defensive standpoint, I think you can do a lot with him too, because he's so athletic.
Yeah, and I don't think he's as raw. Huge. Yeah, I see that. I don't think he's as raw as people want to peg him as. Now, part of it is he is more raw than you'd want going into the NFL, but I think you can see a clear progression. He's gotten better at his time at Penn State. So that's not like a guy. My biggest problem with Bud Dupree is like he was the same dude the entire time at Kentucky. Like I always said, he was the best at watching football on the football field. Like he was the best fan in the world. He had the best seat to watch somebody else make a play. He just ran around and had no idea where the ball was going. Now he got better over time, but I never thought he was an incredibly instinctual player. I see those things from Owe. It's just, can you get him more often? And given his track record in his story, I think he made strides in 2020 despite what was a terrible year. So I'm not saying he's going to come in and be a dominant sort of Myles Garrett edge rusher in day one, but I don't think that this narrative of like he doesn't know how to play football, like that's what it's gotten to, is like he doesn't really know how to play football. He doesn't know how to play the position. It's like, yes, he does. He just hasn't had enough time to take the things he's learned and experiment with them, or like, you know, see what works and what doesn't work for him and develop those plans and all those things and continue learning. Because the other thing is, and I know he said like, you know, he thought he was way better in 2020, but he never got to actually meet John Scott Jr., his position coach, until training camp. So like, I don't know what you were expecting out of the guy in that situation. And then he decides to come out, obviously, because, you know, he knew how fast he was, right?
Yeah. Freiermuth would be 2 if we had to, because they need another tight end.
Is he a first-round pick, do you think?
No.
Okay.
I actually think he's going to go in the 3rd round, to be honest.
Really? 3rd round?
Yeah.
Why is that?
I think that his athleticism is going to scare people. His speed, lack of speed. If he had run at his pro day, and we all watched him at the pro day, and if you clocked him, he might run sub 5. Like he's probably high 4s.
I would have said 4.7 or 4.8 is where I would have put him. Not at the pro day, but like his game speed, I think, is more 4.75, 4.8. Yeah.
But regardless, he's not your new age.
No.
Like what they have, like what the Steelers have now is Ebron, who is a faster down the seam, stretch the field type guy. Pitts from Florida is more like that. And it's just one of those things where like I can see him falling because of the athleticism, and not that I don't like him, because I think he's a very good player, and I think he'll play in the NFL for 15 years if he stays healthy.
Yeah.
Like if he could stay healthy, he's got an 8 to 10 whatever plus year career, because he can block, he's good in traffic, and he catches.
He's a good receiver.
So
like he's got he's good at the position. The thing that he said at his pro day that kind of concerns me is a lot of tight ends, or a lot of teams see him as the move tight end. And I think that like the thing that made him good was he was 260 pounds and he could catch as well as he could, and he could move as well as he could as a receiver, not, you know, speed wise, but like functional movement skills as a receiver. And they want him 250 and being the move tight end. And I'm like, you want him being your good run blocker, and he provides that value as a receiver. If you have him primarily as the receiver, I feel like you're going to be disappointed. Like I feel like that's you setting yourself up for disappointment with him, because his skill was the combination of the two, not one or the other. And and I don't like that. That in itself might cause some problems in his career that I would be concerned about.
Yeah, I mean, he's going to have a career, and the reason why I said it'll be longer is because he has the late years will be a second tight end who blocks and scores goal line touchdowns. Early in his career, he has a chance to be a starter for a while, but that's good for him because he's super young, and his prime is ahead of him. It's not behind him at Penn State.
Yeah.
He was just so good early because he was massive.
Yeah, right.
Like he was a massive, massive dude. His floor was so high.
Yeah. Well, he came in as a grown man. I said that to somebody on a different show. I was like, he's been the same guy since he was first on campus at Penn State. He's just been your dad amongst a bunch of guys playing football. Like he's just been bigger than everybody else. And I don't want to discredit the work he put in, but physically he never like took a quantum leap at any point. Now he got better at the position, but like that he was this. I think that was the disappointment, is you saw that freshman year for some fans and you thought, oh my gosh, look at this guy, and like All-American aspirations this past year. And then the injury and everything else that went into it, it kind of left on a flat note. But I don't think he changed. Like, I don't think what he was ever changed from day one, which is always super interesting, because that's, he's a positive example of like, he was good early and he stayed good. that was kind of like you peaked in high school sort of Christian Hackenberg thing.
I was about to mention that too. It's just like he came in and was like great. And so everything was compared to that first year. So when he didn't live up to it, it wasn't as good. I thought Fryermuth was good his sophomore year. So,
yes.
I mean, I think that's fair. And then once again, we can blame 2020 for a lot of things, and he can blame 2020 because they fractured this season. They were playing, then they weren't, and then he was coming back, and then he was coming back again. So and then he was out.
And a lot of his opportunities, like watching film, he had a lot of opportunities that the ball just didn't get there. Like wide open opportunities. There's a lot of guys that had that.
The Indiana game.
Yep.
My goodness. They should have won by a lot.
Yeah. That's one of those games where it's like Indiana fans get to be happy about that, and they should be. And they had a great season. But there's some stuff on tape where you just go, oh, that game was in the bag if they could complete a pass in the first half.
Yeah, man. When I think about that one still makes me shake my head. And we all, I mean, as fans, those are the type of ones that you remember. And you don't remember like a Rutgers beatdown or something like that from 4 years ago. But I'll remember the Indiana game forever.
Yeah. It's tattooed in there, huh?
And I was like, why are you so jaded about Penn State football? Well, Indiana in 2020. That's why.
What was the other Indiana game?
Oh my God. It was like
11 or 12 with
it was
Tevin
11.
Coleman. 11.
It was
okay.
11. Yeah. Yeah, that was yikes. Yeah. Or maybe it was 14. I don't know. Whatever. There was a couple of games where they we lost to Indiana? Really?
Yeah.
It's been 40 years, and then we lost to and I say we because I'm a fan now. That's a media guy. But I was like, really? They lost them again? You gotta be kidding me. Go back to the previous 40 years. I didn't have to worry about Indiana. Right?
Yeah, or Temple, right? Not to bring up the greatest hits of the sanctions, but that's exactly right. That's the time when we were in school, and then post school was all of that emotional scarring, right?
Yeah. Oh, an opening day loss to Ohio. Gerald Hodges returned a punt. Well, he didn't actually. He tried.
I forgot about that.
And now they got Gerald Hodges. I love Gerald Hodges, but my gosh, it was anyway. What was nice though is we talked about the scars, but the one game I was able to go to that I'll remember forever is the Big Ten championship game in 2016. As much
you went
as
to that?
Yeah, I was there.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, there's a little road trip, and as much as I'll forget, I'll remember about Indiana. That will disappear from my memory a lot sooner than the Big Ten championship game. I saw I think right on the 10-yard line where they stopped them. It was, you could see that he was short, right?
Yeah.
Dead straight ahead of me. So it was a great game.
Last question. What do you think the season will be like in 2021? Just broad strokes, sort of. Do you think it'll be a good season? I'm not going to hold your feet to the fire because I hate giving predictions. What do you think their record is going to be? And in 2020, I was like, you know what? They could lose one game and I wouldn't be surprised. I think that
they could lose them all, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Hell if I know when it comes to the projections, but what do you think their chances are in 2021?
It's going to be a roller coaster. I think there's going to be ups and downs. I'm never a person that's going to say, well, they're going to go undefeated. I'll want them to win every game, but I don't necessarily think that going in.
Yeah.
I do think they're going to start off the season rough, and then with a rough schedule. So if they can get through that undefeated, I think they have a chance to have a very special season, but it can go off the rails quickly, and it'll be really hard to gain traction. You're not the rest of the Big Ten got better. It's not it's guaranteed win when you go to Northwestern now. It's or Indiana, we just talked about. The teams are better.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's I think that's a really good point. Is that even the teams on your schedule, like you got to be aware of everybody. The every other year thing with Michigan, whoever's at home wins that game, and then Northwestern plays tough now, and the other game that I think is going to be interesting in just from a almost like a science experiment thing is the Auburn game, because I don't know what to expect from Auburn getting a new coaching staff. And, I think they're highly overrated to begin with. So measuring yourself up to an SEC team early in the season, that gets you a lot of clout. But I don't know what it does for you as far as like they're another Power 5 school. But are they, if they were in the Big Ten, would they be Minnesota? Would they be Michigan? Like, I don't know where they would fit into the Big Ten. So, that's a huge opportunity just because I think they're down and they've got a big enough name that it will help you out quite a bit. So that's one that I'm just fascinated to watch in general.
I guess my parting shot would be that I think they'll end the season in the top 25.
Yeah. And after last season, I think Penn State fans need that. I think that'd be a huge win, from what happened in 2020.
Right, and then we can just talk about who's going to be the quarterback all damn winter and spring. Like
There'll be two new ones.
I can't wait. Right?
Yeah.
My God, you have free content for like 8 months. Like, I'm bored. What should I talk about? Let's see who's going to be the quarterback. That'll work. I could do 30 minutes on that again. I haven't done that since yesterday.
Well, Brian, thanks for coming on. This has been a ton of fun. I hope we can do this again.
Yeah, me too. Thanks for having me.
Cheers.